Untie me, I'll do whatever you want. But the rancher did the unthinkable. He had been traveling for hours, his backpack heavy on his shoulders and his throat dry from the relentless sun. He hadn't expected to come across anyone out here. The map he had used was outdated, and GPS signals were weak in this remote area. Yet the sight of the ranch in the distance, with its wooden fences and sprawling fields, gave him a sense of relief. At least, he thought, someone was nearby if he needed help. As he approached the gate, Alex noticed the ranch looked much older than he had imagined. The wood was weathered, the paint peeling in several places, and the wind made the old sign creak above the entrance. Despite the rundown appearance, the place had a kind of quiet dignity. He could see a few cattle grazing calmly, their heads bent to the ground, unaware of the stranger approaching. Alex took a deep breath and pushed the gate open. It swung on rusty hinges, groaning in protest. He walked toward the main house, which stood at the center of the ranch. The porch was simple, with a couple of rocking chairs and a wooden bench. He called out, his voice echoing in the open space, but there was no answer. Perhaps the rancher was out in the fields. He stepped onto the porch cautiously, trying not to disturb anything. His curiosity got the better of him as he peeked through the windows. Everything inside seemed old but well kept, furniture covered with faded cloths, shelves lined with jars of preserves, and a few tools neatly arranged. Alex felt a strange mix of awe and nervousness. This was a place where life was raw and unfiltered, far removed from the city he had left behind. Suddenly, a shadow moved across the yard. Alex froze, his heart skipping a beat. The rancher emerged from behind the barn, a tall, broad-shouldered man with hands rough from years of hard labor. His face was stern, lined with wrinkles that spoke of decades of sun and wind. His eyes were sharp, observing every movement Alex made. "Who are you?" the rancher asked, his voice low and steady. I'm sorry," Alex stammered, taken aback by the intensity of the man's gaze. "I'm just passing through. I didn't mean to intrude." The rancher didn't respond immediately. He took a few steps closer, his boots crunching on the gravel. Alex noticed the way his eyes didn't just look at him. They seemed to search him, as if trying to understand his thoughts, his intentions, everything about him. A shiver ran down Alex's spine. "I saw you near the fence," the rancher finally said. "You were too close to the cattle." Alex swallowed hard. "I didn't mean any harm, I was just curious." The rancher shook his head slowly. "Curiosity can be dangerous out here. You don't know the land, the animals, or me." Alex tried to explain himself, gesturing toward the fence. "I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to trespass or cause trouble. Please, Before he could finish, the rancher moved with surprising speed. In an instant, Alex found himself grabbed and pinned against the barn wall. His backpack fell to the ground with a thud, and the world seemed to tilt around him. "Stay still," the rancher said, his voice firm but not cruel. "I need to make sure you're not lying." Panic surged through Alex. His mind raced, thinking of every possible way to escape. "Wait. Wait, I'll do whatever you want. Please just untie me," he shouted. His voice trembled, a mix of fear and desperation. The rancher didn't say anything at first. He simply looked at Alex, his expression unreadable. Alex could feel the tension in the air, heavy and thick like the summer heat. He tried to steady his breathing, hoping to show that he wasn't dangerous, hoping that his words would convince the rancher to release him. "You think words can save you?" the rancher asked quietly, his eyes never leaving Alex's face. Alex's stomach sank. He realized that pleading might not work. He had always believed that if you apologized enough, people would forgive you. But here, in this remote place with a man who seemed to understand life in ways he couldn't, words felt useless. The rancher tied Alex's hands with a rough rope he had brought from the barn. The fibers were coarse and unforgiving, and Alex winced as they dug into his skin. He struggled, but the rancher's grip was firm and steady. "I warned you," the rancher said. "Actions speak louder than words. Let's see what you're made of." Alex sat on the dusty ground, his heart pounding. Fear was replaced by a strange sense of shame. He realized how careless he had been, wandering into a place he didn't understand, assuming that everything would be okay. He looked up at the rancher, who stood silently, waiting, watching, his shadow stretching long across the yard. Hours seemed to pass. Alex didn't know if the rancher would let him go or not. He tried to think of something, anything, that would make the man trust him. He spoke quietly, explaining who he was, where he came from, and why he had ended up here. He didn't embellish, didn't lie, just told the truth. The rancher listened, occasionally nodding, but said nothing. Alex could feel the man's eyes on him, penetrating, almost judging. It was uncomfortable, but also strangely honest. There was no pretense, no games. Just two people, one fearful, one cautious, standing in the fading sunlight. As evening fell, the temperature dropped slightly, and the rancher finally spoke. "You can't just wander into someone's life and expect no consequences. This land, these animals, my life, it all takes effort and respect. You don't understand that yet." Alex nodded, swallowing hard. "I understand, I really do, I'm sorry." The rancher studied him for a long moment, then finally untied his hands. Alex rubbed his wrists, feeling the rough rope leave marks on his skin. Relief washed over him, but he was also filled with a strange respect for the man who had held him captive, not out of cruelty, but to teach him a lesson he would never forget. "You're lucky," the rancher said. "I could have turned you away or worse, but I see potential in learning if you're willing. Words won't be enough. You'll have to prove it." Alex looked at him, confusion and gratitude mingling in his chest. "I will, I promise. I'll do whatever it takes." The rancher nodded, and for the first time a small smile touched his lips. "Then start by helping me with the evening chores. Actions first, words later." Alex followed him toward the barn, feeling a mix of nervousness and determination. He had entered the ranch as a stranger, unprepared and careless, but he would leave changed, if he could rise to the challenge the rancher had set before him. That night, under the open sky with the stars beginning to appear, Alex learned his first lesson. Respect was earned, trust was given sparingly, and life in this place was not about fear. It was about understanding, responsibility, and facing the consequences of one's own choices. And so what began as a desperate plea, "Untie me. I'll do whatever you want," marked the start of a journey neither of them would forget. A journey that would test courage, patience, and character in ways Alex had never imagined. The first rays of morning light broke over the horizon, casting long shadows across the ranch. Alex woke to the sound of birds calling and the low, steady mooing of the cattle. The night had been cold, and the chill lingered in the air, but there was a quiet calm that seemed to wrap around the entire property. He rubbed his wrists, still tender from the rope, and stretched, trying to shake off the lingering tension from the previous evening. The rancher was already outside, moving through the yard with a purposeful stride. He carried a bucket in one hand and a rope in the other, checking fences and making sure the cattle were where they were supposed to be. His movements were deliberate, practiced, and efficient. Every action seemed to have a reason, and Alex realized just how much life on this ranch demanded attention and care. "Morning," Alex said quietly, not wanting to startle him. The rancher didn't respond immediately, but he glanced over his shoulder. His eyes, sharp and alert even at this early hour, assessed Alex in a way that made him feel exposed. "You ready?" the rancher asked finally. Alex nodded. "I think so. I want to learn, I really do." The rancher studied him a moment longer, then handed him a pitchfork. "We'll start with the chores. You'll feed the animals and help clean the barn. Actions first, words later. Remember that." Alex accepted the pitchfork, its weight heavier than he expected. He had grown up in the city, far removed from the routines of farm life. This was entirely new to him, and he realized quickly that the work would not be easy, but he was determined to prove himself. The morning passed slowly. Alex learned how to scatter feed for the chickens, fill water troughs, and sweep the barn floor. Every movement required precision. The cattle were large and powerful, and even a small mistake could have consequences. He stumbled a few times, dropping the feed or startling a chicken, but the rancher's eyes were always on him, correcting gently but firmly. "You can't rush," the rancher said, his voice calm but firm. "Everything here has a rhythm. You follow it or you get hurt, or worse, someone else does." Alex nodded, swallowing his frustration. He felt his muscles ache in ways they never had before. The work was harder than anything he had imagined, but with each task, he began to understand what the rancher meant. Life on this land wasn't about shortcuts or excuses. It was about attention, care, and patience. By midday, the sun was high and scorching. Sweat dripped down Alex's face, soaking through his shirt, but he didn't dare stop. He could see the rancher watching him, observing not just his actions, but his attitude. Every time Alex hesitated or showed signs of frustration, the rancher's gaze reminded him to focus, to stay present, and to respect the task at hand. During a break, the rancher handed Alex a bucket of water. "Drink," he said. "You'll need it." Alex took a long drink, feeling the cool water slide down his throat. He looked at the rancher and asked, "Why did you tie me up yesterday? I mean, why not just send me away?" The rancher didn't answer immediately. He stared out at the fields, watching a cow nibble at the grass. "Because actions matter more than words," he said at last. "Anyone can say they're sorry. Anyone can promise to do better. But you won't know what that means until you show it. Until you face the work, the responsibility, the consequences of your choices." Alex thought about this for a long moment. He had always believed that apologies and promises could fix mistakes, but here, in this quiet, unforgiving place, he realized that life worked differently. Respect and trust were earned, not given. The afternoon brought new challenges. A young calf had wandered too close to the fence, its hooves tangled in a patch of brambles. The rancher handed Alex a rope and motioned for him to help. Alex approached carefully, remembering the rancher's words. He knelt beside the frightened animal, speaking softly to calm it while trying to free it from the brambles. His hands were scratched and bleeding slightly, but he persisted. Finally, the calf was free, and it bounded back to the safety of the herd. Alex exhaled, his chest tight with relief. The rancher nodded, approving. "Good," he said simply. "You learned something today, not just how to help the animals, but how to stay calm under pressure." As the day wore on, Alex began to notice the rhythm of the ranch. Feeding, watering, cleaning, and checking fences all blended into a pattern that felt almost like a dance. The work was exhausting, but there was also a sense of accomplishment. For the first time in a long while, Alex felt that he was part of something bigger than himself. During a quiet moment as they repaired a section of fence together, Alex asked, "Have you always worked this land?" The rancher paused, hammer in hand. "Most of my life," he said. "My father taught me and his father before him. This land isn't just property. It's a responsibility. It takes patience, honesty, and care. You don't just live here, you live with it." Alex nodded, feeling the weight of those words. He realized that the rancher's strength wasn't just in his hands or his body. It was in his understanding of life, his connection to the land, and his sense of responsibility. It was something that couldn't be taught in a book or learned in a classroom. By evening, the sun had begun its slow descent, and the sky turned shades of gold and purple. Alex was tired, sore, and covered in dust, but there was a new energy in him. A determination to continue, to earn the trust that had been cautiously offered to him. The rancher called him over to the porch. "Sit," he said. They watched the sky together in silence, the only sounds the soft rustling of the wind through the trees and the distant lowing of cattle. "I can see you're trying," the rancher said finally. "Not everyone would do that. Most would complain, quit, or try to find excuses, but you kept going." Alex looked down at his hands, calloused and scraped from the day's work. "I want to learn, I want to understand. I don't want to waste this chance." The rancher nodded slowly. Good. That's the first step. Actions, not words. Always remember that. Tomorrow will be harder, but that's where you'll see if you're serious. Alex felt a mixture of fear and anticipation. He had come to this ranch thinking it would be a simple stop on his journey, a brief encounter with someone who might offer directions or help. Instead, he found himself in a place that demanded everything of him: his patience, his strength, his focus, and his honesty. That night, as Alex lay on the floor of the barn, listening to the soft breathing of the animals around him, he reflected on the day. Every small task, every mistake, every moment of uncertainty had taught him something. He thought about the rancher's words, about the meaning of trust, responsibility, and respect, and he realized that this was more than just a lesson in farm work. It was a lesson in life. He closed his eyes, feeling the ache in his muscles and the satisfaction in his heart. He knew the journey was just beginning. The rancher had given him a chance, not because he was weak or desperate, but because he saw the potential to grow, to learn, to change. Alex didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but he was ready. For the first time, he understood that true strength wasn't in running away, in pleading, or in words alone. True strength came from facing challenges, working hard, and proving oneself through action. And as sleep finally took him, he felt a quiet determination settle in his chest. He would rise to the challenge. He would show the rancher, and more importantly himself, that he was capable of more than fear and excuses. The first day had ended, but the journey had only begun, and Alex knew that life on this ranch would teach him lessons he would carry forever. The sun rose slowly over the ranch, spilling gold across the fields and warming the dusty paths. Alex woke early, his body sore from the previous day's labor, but there was a strange sense of purpose in him. The ache in his muscles reminded him of the work he had done, and even though it was uncomfortable, he welcomed it. It was proof that he was learning, that he was becoming part of this land, however small that part might be. The rancher was already outside, moving with his usual steady rhythm. He was checking fences, inspecting the water troughs, and making sure the animals were safe. The sight of him was reassuring but also intimidating. There was a confidence in the rancher's movements, a knowledge born of years spent under the sun and the sky that made Alex feel both respect and a little fear. "Ready for today?" the rancher asked without turning around. Alex nodded, trying to hide the nervousness that fluttered in his chest. "Yes, I'm ready." The rancher studied him for a moment before speaking. "Today you'll face something more challenging. Words won't help you here. You'll have to think, act, and take responsibility." "Can you do that?" Alex swallowed hard. "I'll try." The rancher finally turned, his eyes meeting Alex's. There was no malice there, but there was an unmistakable seriousness. "Good, follow me." He led Alex to the back of the ranch, where a small herd of cattle was grazing near a broken fence. One section had been damaged during a storm, and the animals could easily escape if not carefully managed. The rancher handed Alex a rope and motioned toward the herd. "Your task is simple in words but not in practice," the rancher said. "You need to secure the fence and guide the cattle back without panicking. One mistake and the animals could run, and you'll see the consequences." Alex's heart raced. He had helped with the cattle before, but never under this kind of pressure. The rope felt heavy in his hands, and he could feel the sweat starting to form on his brow. He looked at the herd, their large eyes watching him cautiously, sensing his nervousness. The rancher knelt beside him. "Calm," he said. "Talk to them, move slowly. Show them you're in control, not through force but through confidence. You can't bluff them, they'll know." Alex nodded and took a deep breath. He approached the closest cow slowly, speaking in a low, steady voice. "It's okay, easy, just back up." His hands were trembling slightly, but he tried to hide it. The cow flinched but didn't run. Encouraged, he moved to the next one, using gentle pressure with the rope to guide them toward the repaired section of the fence. Time seemed to stretch. The sun climbed higher, and Alex's arms ached from holding the rope and keeping the animals under control. A sudden jolt came when one of the cows tried to push past him, its muscles strong and unpredictable. Alex stumbled, nearly losing his balance, but the rancher's hand steadied him. "Don't fight it," the rancher said calmly. "Use the energy, guide it, don't resist it." Alex took a moment, centered himself, and then tried again. Slowly, deliberately, he moved the cow back toward the fence. The rest of the herd followed, sensing his newfound confidence. After what felt like hours, the animals were secured, the fence repaired, and Alex could finally breathe. The rancher nodded, a rare smile appearing on his face. "Not bad," he said. "You kept calm, thought ahead, and adapted when things went wrong. That's how you earn trust. That's how you show you're serious." Alex wiped the sweat from his brow, feeling a mixture of relief and pride. He had faced a real challenge, one that required focus, patience, and courage. It wasn't just physical strength, it was mental strength as well. The day continued with more tasks, each designed to test his patience, decision-making, and resilience. He helped carry water to distant troughs, moved heavy feed bags, and mended fences in other parts of the ranch. The work was exhausting, but it was teaching him something deeper. That life here was not about shortcuts, complaints, or fear. It was about steady effort, respect for the land, and attention to detail. During a quiet moment as they rested on a fallen log near the pasture, Alex asked the rancher, "Have you always been this strict with people who come here?" The rancher looked at him, his eyes thoughtful. "Not strict, careful. I've seen what happens when people aren't careful. I've seen promises broken, trust abused, and lives made harder by foolishness. Out here, mistakes are costly. Sometimes they can't be fixed easily." Alex nodded, absorbing the weight of the words. He realized that the rancher's actions, tying him up, testing him, observing him, were not punishment. They were lessons. Life had given him a rare opportunity to learn from someone who had seen it all, who understood consequences better than anyone he had ever met. As the sun began to dip in the sky, casting long shadows over the fields, the rancher gave Alex one final task for the day, to lead the cattle back to the barn without any help. Alex felt a knot of fear in his stomach, but he also felt ready. He had learned the rhythm of the land, the patience of the animals, and the need to stay calm under pressure. He approached the herd, rope in hand, and began guiding them slowly. One cow hesitated, and Alex remembered the rancher's words, "Don't fight it, guide it." He adjusted his movements, spoke softly, and nudged the animal forward. Bit by bit, the herd moved, following his lead. By the time the last cow entered the barn, Alex was exhausted but exhilarated. He had faced the unthinkable challenge, and he had succeeded. The rancher clapped him on the shoulder. "You've come a long way in a short time," he said. "But remember, this is just the beginning. Life here doesn't get easier, it just teaches you how to be stronger." Alex nodded, feeling a deep sense of accomplishment. He realized that the true test was not the physical work alone, but the courage, patience, and determination it took to keep going, even when it seemed impossible. That evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sun set behind the hills, Alex reflected on everything he had learned. The rancher had given him a rare gift, not just work, not just lessons about cattle or fences, but a chance to see himself differently. He had faced fear, uncertainty, and exhaustion, and he had discovered strength he didn't know he had. "Thank you," Alex said quietly. The rancher looked at him, eyes sharp but soft. "Don't thank me yet. The real lessons are still coming. What you did today shows potential, but it doesn't mean the work is done. It means you're ready to face more if you choose to. That's the difference between wishing and doing." Alex nodded, understanding the weight of the words. It wasn't enough to want to learn. He had to keep showing it, proving it through every action, every choice, every day. That night, as Alex lay down on the barn floor, exhausted but satisfied, he thought about the words the rancher had spoken, about the trust that had been tentatively offered to him. He realized that the unthinkable challenge, the test he had feared so much, was not about cruelty or punishment. It was about teaching him responsibility, patience, and courage. He closed his eyes, muscles aching, mind racing, but heart full of determination. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new lessons, and new opportunities to prove himself. And Alex knew that he would face them head-on, with everything he had learned in the long, hot day on the ranch. For the first time, he understood the meaning of the rancher's silent, watchful gaze. It wasn't about fear. It was about preparation, guidance, and seeing who he truly was beneath the surface. And with that understanding, Alex drifted into a deep sleep, ready to face whatever came next. The next morning, the ranch woke to the soft light of dawn spilling over the fields. Alex rose with a sense of purpose, his body still sore from the previous day's challenges, but his mind more focused than ever. For the first time, he felt as if he belonged to this land in a small way, not just as a visitor, but as someone willing to learn and work alongside the rancher. The rancher was already moving through the yard, checking the water troughs and the gates. His steps were deliberate, every movement purposeful, and Alex watched carefully, learning the rhythm of life here. The rancher glanced at him as he approached. "Today," he said, "you'll learn more than just chores. You'll learn about patience, trust, and the work it takes to be part of something bigger than yourself." Alex nodded. He understood that the rancher's lessons went beyond labor. They were about character, responsibility, and human connection. The first task of the morning involved the garden. The rancher handed Alex a hoe and instructed him to remove weeds that had taken root overnight. It was tedious work, but the rancher walked alongside him, pointing out which plants needed care and which could be left alone. As they worked, he spoke quietly about the importance of patience. "Life is like this garden," he said. "Some things grow fast, some slowly, and some need constant attention. You can't force them. You can only care for them, and they will flourish in their time." Alex listened intently, understanding that the lesson applied not just to plants, but to his own growth. He had rushed through life before, expecting results quickly, thinking that words and promises were enough. Here he was learning that true progress required effort, persistence, and respect for the process. Later, they moved to the cattle, which needed to be herded to a new pasture. Alex had faced this task before, but now it was different. He moved with confidence, guiding the animals gently but firmly, speaking softly, and adjusting his approach when one of them became stubborn or frightened. The rancher observed quietly, occasionally offering a nod or a single word of guidance, letting Alex take responsibility for his actions. As the day progressed, Alex began to notice small, human moments that made the ranch feel alive. The rancher shared stories about the animals, explaining their habits, their quirks, and their history. He spoke of the calf that had been injured the previous year and how careful attention had saved it. He described the challenges of raising animals and crops in a place where the weather was unpredictable and help was scarce. Alex realized that the rancher's toughness came not from harshness, but from experience, understanding, and a deep connection to the land and its creatures. During a mid-afternoon break, the rancher invited Alex to sit on the porch and share a simple meal of bread, cheese, and fresh milk. They ate in silence for a few minutes, watching the cattle graze in the distance. Alex felt a sense of peace he had never experienced before. The simplicity of the meal, the quiet of the land, and the presence of the rancher made him reflect on how complicated his life had been in the city, filled with noise, distraction, and endless worry. "You're learning quickly," the rancher said finally, breaking the silence. "But remember, learning isn't just about doing things correctly. It's about understanding why. Why the fences matter, why the animals behave the way they do, why patience is more powerful than force." Alex nodded, realizing that every task, no matter how small, was part of a bigger lesson. He thought about the day he had been tied up, how fear and desperation had clouded his judgment, and how far he had come since then. The rancher had not only given him a chance to correct his mistakes, but he had guided him to grow in ways Alex had never expected. The afternoon brought another challenge. A sudden storm rolled in, dark clouds moving quickly across the sky. The wind picked up and rain began to fall in heavy sheets. The cattle became restless and the smaller animals sought shelter. The rancher moved quickly, securing gates, checking the barns and guiding the animals to safety. Alex followed closely, trying to remember everything he had learned about staying calm under pressure. He helped a frightened calf find its way into the barn, speaking gently and keeping his movements steady. The wind howled around them and the rain soaked through his clothes, but he did not falter. He remembered the rancher's words: actions, not words; patience, not panic. By the time the storm passed, the rancher and Alex were exhausted but satisfied. The animals were safe, and the ranch was unharmed. They stood together on the porch, watching the sun break through the clouds and illuminate the glistening fields. Alex felt a sense of accomplishment and pride unlike anything he had known. He realized that challenges were not obstacles to fear, but opportunities to learn, to grow, and to prove oneself. As evening approached, the rancher assigned Alex one final task: to check the fences alone. The sun was low and the light was fading, but the rancher trusted him to complete the task responsibly. Alex felt nervous but determined. He moved carefully, inspecting each post, fixing loose boards, and making sure the cattle could not escape. Every step, every movement reminded him of the lessons he had been taught: focus, patience, and respect for the land. When he returned to the porch, the rancher was waiting. "You did well," he said simply. "Not just because you completed the task, but because you understood the responsibility that came with it. That is the true measure of progress." Alex felt a deep sense of gratitude. He had come to the ranch as a stranger, unsure and frightened, and now he was leaving the day with confidence, knowledge, and a growing respect for the rancher. He realized that the bond they were forming was built not on words or promises, but on shared effort, mutual respect, and understanding. That night, as Alex lay on the barn floor listening to the quiet breathing of the animals, he reflected on the day's events. He thought about the storm, the tasks he had completed, and the lessons he had learned. He understood that the rancher's guidance was not about control or punishment, but about teaching him how to face challenges with integrity and courage. He also noticed something deeper: the bond forming between them. It was not a bond of friendship alone, but of trust, respect, and shared experience. The rancher had shown him what it meant to work hard, to be patient, and to care deeply, not just for the animals and the land, but for the people around him. Alex realized that he was beginning to see the world differently, to value effort over words, and understanding over haste. The night passed quietly, and Alex slept with a sense of purpose. He knew that tomorrow would bring new lessons, new challenges, and new opportunities to grow. But for the first time, he felt prepared. He understood that the journey he had begun was about more than just surviving on the ranch. It was about becoming a better, stronger, more thoughtful person. And as the stars shone above the quiet ranch, Alex made a silent promise to himself. He would continue to learn, to listen, and to act with integrity. The lessons of the land, the animals, and the rancher were becoming a part of him, shaping his character in ways he had never imagined. By the end of the fourth day, Alex felt a transformation within himself. He was no longer the panicked traveler who had begged to be untied. He had faced real challenges, proven his determination, and begun to earn the trust of a man who had once seemed unapproachable. The bond they had started to form was strong, built on respect, effort, and shared experience, a bond that would carry him forward in ways he was only beginning to understand. And in the quiet of the night, as the ranch settled into calm, Alex realized that the unthinkable moment that had begun his journey, the moment he had pleaded and feared, was now just the first step of a path that would teach him the true meaning of responsibility, patience, and trust. The morning air was crisp and filled with the scent of damp earth and fresh grass. Alex woke with a sense of anticipation he hadn't felt in a long time. Today was different. Today felt like a turning point, a moment when everything he had learned, struggled through, and experienced on the ranch would come together. The rancher was already outside, moving through the yard with his usual steady rhythm. He glanced at Alex, giving a small nod of acknowledgement. "Today, you'll finish what you started," he said. "The tasks are simple, but the meaning is great. It's about showing that you've learned, that you've grown, and that you can carry these lessons forward." Alex felt a mix of nervousness and determination. He knew that this final day was not just about chores. It was a test of everything he had absorbed. He remembered the first day he had arrived, terrified and pleading, and he realized how far he had come. He was no longer the same panicked traveler. He had changed, shaped by the ranch, the work, and the guidance of the rancher. Their first task involved checking every fence and gate on the property. This time, Alex moved with confidence, inspecting each post, tightening boards and making sure the animals were secure. His hands were calloused but steady, and his movements precise. He noticed small details he would have missed before, like a loose hinge or a weak rope, and he corrected them before they could become a problem. The rancher observed silently, occasionally offering a nod or a quiet word of advice. Alex realized that the rancher was testing not just his ability to work, but his ability to think ahead, to anticipate problems, and to take responsibility without being told what to do. It was a lesson in leadership, in awareness, and in integrity. By mid-morning, the sun was high, and the work moved indoors. Alex was tasked with helping repair a section of the barn roof that had been damaged during a storm weeks before. It was demanding, requiring balance, focus, and careful handling of heavy wooden beams. Alex climbed the ladder slowly, remembering all the advice the rancher had given about patience and safety. As he worked, he reflected on the lessons of the past days, the importance of calm under pressure, the value of persistence, and the necessity of careful observation. He realized that these lessons were not just about ranch work, they were about life itself. Mistakes could have consequences, but they also offered opportunities to learn, to grow, and to improve. The rancher watched him work, occasionally stepping in to adjust a beam or guide a movement. But mostly, he allowed Alex to take responsibility, to find solutions, and to prove that he could handle the challenge. Each successful adjustment, each careful placement of a board, strengthened Alex's confidence and reinforced the lessons he had learned about patience, focus, and responsibility. By afternoon, the barn was secure, the roof repaired, and Alex felt a deep sense of accomplishment. He descended the ladder carefully, feeling the soreness in his muscles, but also a pride that went beyond physical effort. He had faced challenges, overcome fear, and learned to trust himself. The rancher handed him a towel and a fresh shirt. "You've done well," he said. "Not just because the work is complete, but because you've shown growth, determination, and understanding. That's what matters most." Alex nodded, feeling the weight and the truth of those words. He realized that this experience had changed him. He was no longer someone who panicked or relied solely on words to navigate life. He had learned to act, to think, and to carry responsibility with calm and purpose. The final task of the day was symbolic, a way to mark the transformation. The rancher handed Alex a small, young calf that needed care and attention. Alex's responsibility was to feed, guide, and watch over it until evening, applying everything he had learned about patience, understanding, and connection. Alex approached the calf slowly, speaking in soft, steady tones. He guided it gently, ensuring it was calm and comfortable. The rancher watched quietly, and for the first time, Alex felt a sense of mutual understanding between them. It was no longer teacher and student, or rancher and visitor. It was two people working together, connected through respect, effort, and shared experience. As the sun began to set, casting golden light over the fields, Alex led the calf back to the barn. The animals were secure, the work was complete, and a deep sense of satisfaction settled over him. He looked at the rancher, who finally allowed a small, approving smile. "You've done well," the rancher said. "Not everyone would have made it this far. You've faced fear, worked hard, and shown patience. That's what makes the difference between wishing and doing, between words and action." Alex felt a surge of gratitude and humility. He realized that the journey had been about much more than ranch work or survival. It had been about understanding responsibility, building trust, and growing into a stronger, wiser person. They sat together on the porch, the sky painted in brilliant shades of orange, pink, and purple. The ranch was quiet except for the occasional rustle of leaves and the distant lowing of cattle. Alex felt a deep sense of peace, a feeling he had never experienced in the chaos of city life. The rancher spoke again, his voice calm but firm. "Life will test you in ways you cannot predict. You will face challenges, people who don't understand, and moments when you feel uncertain. But if you carry these lessons with you, patience, responsibility, integrity, you'll find your way." Alex listened, understanding that these words were not just advice, but a guide for the future. He realized that the rancher's actions, the tests, the guidance, and even the unthinkable moment that had started it all were part of a greater purpose, to teach him how to face life with courage and thoughtfulness. As the stars appeared in the night sky, Alex felt a quiet sense of accomplishment. He had entered the ranch as a stranger, fearful and unsure, and he was leaving as someone changed, strengthened, and wiser. The bond he had formed with the rancher was rooted in respect and shared effort, a bond that would stay with him long after he left. Before leaving the next morning, Alex helped with the morning chores one last time. He fed the animals, checked the fences, and repaired a few small items around the property. Every movement felt familiar, natural, and meaningful. The rancher watched him, nodding occasionally, a quiet acknowledgement of the journey Alex had undertaken. When it was finally time to depart, Alex packed his belongings, feeling a mixture of sadness and gratitude. He turned to the rancher. "Thank you," he said, his voice filled with sincerity, "for everything. I'll never forget this place, these lessons, or what you've taught me." The rancher's gaze was steady, his eyes reflecting pride and understanding. "Remember, it's not about me or this ranch. It's about what you carry forward. Take responsibility, act with patience, and trust in yourself. That's what matters." Alex nodded, feeling a deep sense of purpose. He realized that the unthinkable moment, the fear, the pleading, the testing, had not been punishment but a gift. It had been the start of a journey that had transformed him, teaching lessons he would carry for the rest of his life. He stepped onto the dusty road, the morning sun warming his face, and looked back one last time. The ranch stood quiet and strong, a symbol of resilience, patience, and wisdom. He felt ready for whatever lay ahead, carrying the lessons of the land, the animals, and the rancher with him. As he walked away, he understood something important. Life would always have challenges, moments that tested courage and patience, and situations that demanded action. But with the lessons he had learned, the trust he had earned, and the strength he had discovered within himself, he knew he could face them. The rancher watched him disappear into the distance, the horizon stretching endlessly before him. He allowed himself a small smile, knowing that Alex had learned what mattered most, that true growth comes not from fear, but from effort, responsibility, and understanding. And as the wind rustled through the fields and the sun climbed higher in the sky, the ranch returned to its quiet rhythm, holding within it the memory of a young traveler who had arrived in fear and left transformed, ready to face life with courage, patience, and integrity.